What is going on, my friends? Mike Walker here. Thanks for joining me today. I want to share with you some insights. Today in my world, today specifically is an interesting day. Our daughter turns 18 years old. And if you're a parent, whether you've got a little one that's growing up or you have one that's already kind of moved out and is on their way, you know what I'm talking about. And if you're not a parent, maybe you will be one day. And even if not, there's still some lessons here for you. So I want to share with you some insights that will have a quantum effect in your business and in your life. As I'm sure you are aware, life and business are not separate, right? Regardless of whether you work for somebody or you're most of my audience here is obviously entrepreneurs and business leaders and people that are really making impact in the world. And everything that we have going on in our personal lives naturally has an impact on what goes on in our business and vice versa, correct? All right, take down some notes on this stuff because it absolutely can be pretty life-changing when you consider the ramifications or what we call that butterfly effect of our activities and how they impact every other element of our life and business. All right. So again, just as context, our daughter is turned 18. She's a phenomenal human, done incredibly well in her young years so far. And we are humbled and blessed to be able to be part of her journey. And there are a few things that as I reflect today, I spent the morning actually reflecting on some of this stuff, naturally going through the archives of photos and all the things, kind of having those daddy moments, right? It's really highlighted a few things that I was really happy about, grateful for. And I thought, man, these were things that I'm so thankful that I did, but I could have even done them more or I could have done them better. And that's what I want to share with you today. All right. So again, one of the things that I did very early on, I wish I had done it the day Lacey was born, maybe even the days leading up to her being born, was I actually created an email account for her. And I would send over the years, I've just been sending emails to this inbox. She never got it. I obviously had the password and everything kind of stored away. And I just knew it was a digital journal, so to speak. And so over the years, I would share photos or a quick video message, even a quick little note, sometimes very short, sometimes more thoughtful. And typically around holidays or birthdays, I might spend a little bit more time on the message, knowing that someday at some point she would end up seeing those messages. And when she got older, I shared with her that email. And obviously it was a pretty emotional moment when she realized, like, oh my gosh, look at all these cool memories that are in here. Look at all these cool messages. And as a parent, this is something that has a really cool effect because it forces you to consider what's happening in the moment and allows you to capture those moments, capture those thoughts, and naturally share something forward for your little one. And so I'm really glad I did this. I think I started when she was about 5. And I just wish I had done it sooner. Just have those extra few years in there would have been really cool. That's an easy one to do. Set an alert on your phone. Remind yourself, have one that goes off once a week, once a month, whatever you want, or just randomly. And just remind yourself to drop a quick note. Like I said, it doesn't have to be anything profound, but just capture the moment. What are your thoughts? How are your days going? What did you guys just do? All those things. It was really fun to reflect back on that. And then this morning, I shared with her some of the screenshots of some of those emails. She now has them, but I bring them back up, refresh them to the top in a text message to her. And it's just fun for both of us to go through. And again, a cool moment. So step number 1, set up an email for your kid really early and just send them messages. And it's a really cool way to capture the moment. Number 2, similarly, and this is where the compound effect of time can really happen. Regardless of your expertise or knowledge in terms of investing, one of the things that is available to children as a parent is you can set them up with a 529 plan. Basically, it's an investment account that there's all different vehicles. I'm not even going to get into the nuance of that. Talk to a financial professional. They'll know exactly what I'm talking about. But get them set up on a plan, whereas it's essentially a way that you can invest in their future education and then draw out of those funds when they're old enough, in this case at 18, and it pays for college and all the things. Here's the interesting thing. It was Einstein who said the compound interest is the 8th wonder of the world. It's a whole lot easier to save up a lot of money if you get a nice lump sum early and just let the compounding of time of the 18 plus years just take effect. And so one of the things that in reflecting we did, but I wish I had even done it more, was to, in those earliest of years, the second they're born, create this account for them and ask everybody in their life, the grandparents, the friends, the family, whatever it may be, Ask them to invest into the future of your child, of your little one, right then and there. Get as much of a lump sum together as you can, because that lump sum has this compounding interest effect that is really hard to catch up for later. It just means you have to put in more money later. But if you start early with a nice, really healthy lump sum, whatever that means to you, it really does make a profound difference over time. So set them up with a plan as soon as you possibly can, usually day one of their life. As soon as you have a social security number, you can usually open an account on their behalf. And you, of course, are the person in charge of it until they're 18. And even then, you can designate how that gets handled. Again, talk to a financial professional. That's not my calling or lane here, but I just want to share that with you, that get ahead of that now. Take advantage of compounding interest over time. It's truly a really cool way to set them up well and fund the future education of your little one. And then the last one I'll leave you with is a non-negotiable. And then I'm going to tie this up to, even if you're still with me and you don't have children, I'm going to tie this up in how this actually impacts everything else in your life. And the last one is, though, a non-negotiable, one single non-negotiable. Now, what do I mean by that? For me, it was driving our daughter to school every morning. That was like our thing. And as long as I was in town, that's what I did. That was the one thing that I made sure. Didn't matter what else was happening. If I could physically be there, I was going to be the one to drive her to school. That was our little 5 to 10 minute routine in the morning. That was our time together. And when I think back, I knew, I was cognizant of the fact that, wow, these are precious days. These are limited days. I really want to absorb these. And there were great moments that fed the emails that I talked about earlier, the chats and the photos and all the fun little things along the way during these little periods of time. But whatever that non-negotiable is for you, implant that into your mind. That becomes a pillar of truth for your life. And when you have that, it gets easier to say no to the other urgencies in life when you have a predetermined non-negotiable. Now, again, I'm going to start crossing over. How does this relate to other aspects of our life? A lot of times people deal with struggles when it comes to decision making because they don't necessarily have these pillars of truth. They kind of have these general ideas of what they believe and what they like and what they don't like, etc. But they don't necessarily have these predetermined non-negotiables. There's these filters that, unless this criteria is met, it's just simply not even on the table. I'll give you another one that's not necessarily family related, it's more business related. For me, back in about 2008, 2009, after the great financial crisis that we all experienced globally, I became very acutely aware of how impactful it was to have a physical brick and mortar business. At the time, I had a factory, I had employees, I'd have all this overhead associated to it. And that's all fine, and you can do great at that. However, for me personally, I realized, wait a second, I didn't like not being able to be mobile. And I realized by having a brick and mortar business and all the responsibilities that came with that, unless I had someone to delegate that 100% to, I was kind of strapped to where we were. I really didn't have a lot of flexibility because I had to be there. I had to be part of the business and run the business. Now, obviously, there's all kinds of different ways you can mitigate against that. Again, you can bring in employees, you can outsource, you can do all the things. But for me personally, one of my non-negotiables is that I don't want to personally own. I might invest in other businesses, but I don't personally own or operate a business that I can't run remotely from my laptop with Wi-Fi. That's a non-negotiable. I want to be able to maintain my current lifestyle, maintain my current levels of income and grow those incomes, but not be dependent on a physical location. Now, that's taken a little time to create, but over the years, I was able to do that. And now it doesn't matter where I am on the planet. As long as I have Wi-Fi and the ability to communicate online, I can run my business 100% autonomy to do what you want, when you want, et cetera. So here's my point. When you have a business and a non-negotiable, you say, does it meet this criteria? So for me, can I operate this business without being physically tied down to a location? No, not in this case. Okay, then that's a non-negotiable. Now, either I'm going to bring in people that will run it and I can then oversee it remotely, or I'm just simply not going to do it. But even if the opportunity is amazing, yeah, but we can make so much money and there's such a big opportunity. And look at it, you're probably right. I'm pretty confident that if it was a really big opportunity, that's awesome. But it just simply doesn't meet my non-negotiable, right? Now, can those be broken? Sure, life changes. I'm not saying I'm immovable on things, but the reality is that decision making gets a lot easier when you have non-negotiables, pillars of truth created in advance. That's the key word I want to leave you with. Have these pillars of truth, these non-negotiables set up in advance, because under the duress of life, urgencies, you got all this different input coming at you at all points. It can get very hard to navigate these decisions because you have so much data that you're filtering. But that's the point. When you predetermine some of these non-negotiables, these the foundations and pillars of truth, then all of a sudden you can start making decisions quicker, faster, easier, with more clarity, with more confidence, because they just simply are like filters. Nothing gets through because you're like, nah, it doesn't hit it. Psh, done. Yeah, but it's such a good opportunity. Yeah, that's fine. But it still just doesn't meet the criteria that I've predetermined for my life, for my business, for my family, for my future. Right now, last key point I'll leave you with then is the ability to say no to even really good ideas. That was a big one, especially when you start in the entrepreneurial space. You're lean and scrappy. You're kind of just trying to get yourself up and off the ground and going. You kind of have to say yes to everything. Hey, can you do? Yep, I can do it. What about that? Yep, absolutely. I can do that too, right? You just have to say basically yes to everything and expose yourself to opportunity, expose yourself to the chance to grow, to learn new things, to figure out if that's what you like to do, if that's what you feel like you can really add the most value and impact into the marketplace with. But as you grow, as you advance in sophistication as an entrepreneur, you have to shift gears. And if you don't, you will stay stuck. If you don't shift gears here mentally, you will stay stuck from the lean and scrappy. Yes, I can do whatever and I'll be part of it. And I'll get my hands in there and I'll get dirty and I'll be on the front lines. I'm in the trenches every day. That mindset works to a certain point, but then it actually begins to throttle your growth. It's that glass ceiling effect, because that what got you to that level will not work for the next level. To truly shift from the entrepreneur mindset to the CEO mindset requires that you actually start saying no to more things, to most things even. And that's a nuance that I wish I had learned sooner, was realizing that, wow, yes, saying yes to a lot of things was great as an exposure mechanism, as a learning and growth mechanism in my life, in my career, in my trajectory as an entrepreneur. However, if I had stayed in that mode, if I had kept saying yes, if I kept grabbing at every single opportunity, your effort is just diluted across so many different platforms, is thinned out, right? There's just so much energy that's being diffused across too many initiatives. You actually, as you again start to grow and become more successful, you actually have to start saying no to most things and only say yes to the right thing. And that's really the key here, is that if you really want to make an impact in the marketplace with your message, with your business, with your mission, then you need to get very comfortable at saying no to more things so you can say yes to just the right thing. Because here's the interesting part. When you say yes to something, at the exact same time on the quantum level, you are saying no to something else. And when you say no to something, you are actually saying yes to something else. By the nature of the fact that you're still watching this video right now, would suggest that you have a very vested interest in success, whatever that means to be. And I don't just mean the monetary sense, just in life sense, in personal growth sense. But to do that means actually getting good at saying no and having these non-negotiables, pillars of truth, and then sharing those with your little ones. If that means sending them emails like I shared earlier, if that means creating financial plans for them, if whatever that is, create these pillars of truth for your life. It'll speed up decision making. It'll give you more confidence and clarity. It will reduce your stress, and it will allow you to put more focus on the right things, the things that you can say yes to, while at the same time be very comfortable with the idea of saying no to a majority of the others. That is the winning way forward. I hope this helps, and we'll see you on another episode soon. Take care, guys. Blessings.